Preparing doll's house dolls moulds is exactly the same as preparing any other ceramic moulds. First you need to open them carefully and dust them out with a nice soft brush. As you can see, the moulds come in two parts. This one has the body and head mould in it. This one has the arms and legs. If they have not been used for a long time, then cleaning them out is not just enough. You need to spray them lightly with water as well. Not too much, you don't want to soak the moulds. Then close the moulds carefully, being careful not to bang the two halves together, and band them tightly with an elastic band. Now they're ready to pour. I use commercially prepared porcelain slip for casting my dolls, and this should be prepared as follows. Firstly, stir the slip thoroughly. This has been standing for quite some time and it may have some lumps in it, so I'm going to strain it through a sieve into a clean jug. The sieve's a little bit big for the jug, so I think I'm just going to have to hold it, make sure it doesn't pour all over the table. Well, there you go, no lumps at all. This needs to actually be quite runny for casting doll's house dolls. About the thickness of light cream. As you can see, that's quite runny, ready for pouring into small moulds. If yours is thicker than this, you can add some water to it at this stage, but make sure you stir it thoroughly. Remember, it's easier to add water than it is to take it away, so don't add too much to start with. You need to let it stand now for at least half an hour, so let the air bubbles disperse. When you're ready to pour the moulds, give the slip a gentle stir just to make sure that it's all properly mixed. And this jug has a nice sharp pouring spout. You pour into the moulds in a steady stream. Till the mould's full. This one actually has two in each mould, in each pour hole, so you have to pour it right in the middle so that it fills both at the same rate. Be careful to pour slowly, because if you pour too quickly, the pour holes will block up and then you will get what's called a pouring ring, because the slip will stop going into the mould, and then when it starts again it leaves a very nasty ring around what it is you're trying to pour, and you can't get it out. So once they're poured, leave them to set up for a few minutes. As you can see, as the water is absorbed from the slip by the moulds, it begins to drop. The level in the pour hole begins to drop. You can top this up if you like. You might like to set a timer for this. I normally say about 2 minutes for the tiny moulds. because it's very easy to get distracted and find yourself doing something else and then find that the moulds have gone solid. Ask me how I know this, because I have done it, yes. When the 2 minutes is up, you can empty the moulds. I do it back into another jug. Just gently tilt them over until the slit starts running out. Can you see that? There you go. And when it's tipped over, let's put it on a rack to finish draining. This one doesn't want to go. Let's dip it sideways for a few minutes until it actually begins to go. Sometimes with arms and legs, you need to sort of rotate the mould like that because the arms are bent inside the mould and they need to be at the right angle to drain. I think that's just about done. So I'll leave that to dry now, to drain. This is what happens when your casting is too thin and you open the mould too soon. You can see the slip has not made a proper casting at all. I'm afraid you can just have to abandon it at this stage. Pour the slip in a steady stream down the side of the mould. Don't let it fill too quickly. It's full now. Leave it to set up for about 5 minutes. So I'll set my timer. Now the mould's ready to empty, but this one usually needs some encouragement to get the slip out. So I'm going to use a straw. And I'm going to blow into the hole. Now that it's empty, I could leave it to drain. Some dolls, when they're being assembled, need loops of wire in their limbs or head in order to string the dolls. To make these loops of wire is quick and easy. You need to use a higher temperature firing wire to make these loops, and you can get these from your kiln supplier. They come in various thicknesses. This is probably the finest, and use this for the very smallest dolls. This is a sort of medium weight one, and this is a heavier weight one. Now, in order to make the loops, you can either use a pair of pliers like these, which have the nice round ends on them, and they quite simply hold the wire with the pliers, bend it over and twist it. This gives you a nice little loop. You can see that there. There we go. Just cut it off. And cut it off and put it in the box, ready for use later. If you need a bigger loop, you can always use the cocktail stick again. Bend it round, twist it together. Cut it off. That's it. Use a paintbrush instead. Wrap it round. Twist it. Cut it off. There, it's ready to insert into the arm of a doll. Let's do that one more time. Twist it round. Twist it round. Cut it off. There's the loop. Let's see if this mould is ready to open yet. There we go. There you can see the arms and the legs perfectly cast. At this stage you want to lift them out carefully. If the waste comes away, that's no problem at all. Gently let them out. No, a little bit damp still. Now these arms need wired loops put in them so that they can be strung on the finished doll. So I'm going to show you how you do that. This arm is just straight out of the mould, so it's still very damp. I use a paintbrush to just damp the hole a bit more. And I have some quite thick slip here. I'm just going to put some in the hole here, as if I'm filling it up. I then take one of the wire loops that I just made. I'm holding it with the pliers because it's easier. And I'm going to insert that into the top of the arm there. Like that. The same with the other one. It's a bit gunky, but we'll clean up afterwards. Put the wire loop into the top of the arm, making sure you don't poke it out the other side. You don't want to see any of it around here. Of course, when the porcelain is fired, it will shrink. So if the wire is too close to the surface of the porcelain, it might well poke through. Let's just tidy that up a bit. Make sure that's well embedded. And the same with this one. Now, before I forget, I will put the air escape hole underneath the joint, just in case there's any air left in there, and I can feel as it goes in there is some air left in there. So, and the same with the other one. I'll leave that to dry for about half an hour before I go on and clean any more. These are some of the tools that I use for cleaning greenware. As you can see, there's quite an assortment, and most of them are found objects, not specifically for cleaning greenware. On this side here, we have all the selection of straws that I use, from very big, thick ones to the very tiniest one here, which is actually the stem of a cotton bud. If you cut the ends off a stem of a cotton bud, the plastic ones, the old-fashioned ones, you will find they have a very nice fine straw in the middle. This has been cut at an angle, so it'll cut holes in the porcelain. Then come my collection of brushes. These are actually originally intended for cleaning these are actually intended for cleaning greenware. They're very soft and they're beautiful brushes, but you can probably make do with artist's brushes, which will probably work just as well. Then we have my favourite tool, a cocktail stick, some pins of various thicknesses. A scalpel is an absolute must. And these tiny little things here are called finger tools. They are very fine saws, so that you can separate the fingers on the greenware. I've also, on occasion, used a flosser for doing the same thing. And then we have a double-ended drill, so that you can actually take out, either make a hole with this, or you can use it to take out the centre of the arm if you need to hollow it out. Now this doll is Olivia by Gina Bellis, and she makes a very exceptionally good Edwardian lady. As you can see, she has some superb boots. She has very elegant hands with long fingers. And she even has her own corset already included in her body. Now to assemble this doll, it's necessary, as you can see, for the head needs to go onto the body. There's a little thing there for it. So first of all, make sure that it actually fits. And decide how you want her posed. She may want to be looking down. She might want to be looking up. But first you need to clear the inside of the neck hole a little bit so that she can move. And when you decided how you like her posed, whether she has her head tilted to the side, or she's looking down, or she's looking up, when you decided how you like it, you need to put a little bit of slip on the top of the neck there. And you can put the head on. Her head's tilted to the side slightly. Then using some a brush, just brush around the neck. If there are any gaps, put a little bit of slip in it. And leave her to dry before you do any more to the neck. She also needs, you noticed, holes for her arms. Now her arms are actually shorter than her. You can actually put the arm on like that if you want to, but I find that very difficult to dress. So what I normally do is I use pipe cleaners, but I need to make a hole in her underarm here in order to get the pipe cleaner in. So I'm going to use a straw to do that. Twist and push, and there's the hole. And the same the other side. Twist and push. Now, rather than fixing the arm there with some slip, which will make it very difficult to pose her, I can then put a pipe cleaner in there when it's fired and through there as well, so it'll be held in place that way. The other thing this lady will need, I think, we will all agree, she must have earrings. So she needs to have her ears pierced now. Just push in gently with a pin. So that you can get the wire in for her earrings. There she goes. She's so brave she didn't make a sound. I'm also going to make a hole in the top of her head just in case there's any air trapped in there. I don't want her exploding in the kiln. I shall leave her to dry off for a few minutes or half an hour. I'm going to have a cup of tea. Now the fingers on her hands are very delicate. Let them dry a little bit. You see she's actually got fingernails modelled in her hands, which is very elegant. And you may want to actually separate the fingers with the finger tools that I showed you earlier on. So this is actually a saw. You can just see it catching. So very carefully, can you see that? Go between the fingers, just to separate them. I don't think I will separate those two, but I want to separate that a little bit more. And the same with the other one. And I'm going to use a very fine brush. Very careful at this stage not to paint over the end of the fingers when you'll lose the fingernails altogether. This is Cyrene, and she's one of Parker Levi's lovely ladies, and she actually comes in a mould set with 4 different arms. Now, some of these arms, I think they are intended to actually fix to the body. Make sure we get the right way around. If you want to fix it to the body, you need to put some slip on the body there and on the arm there and hold it in place until it sticks. Now, I personally don't like this at all because it makes the dolls very difficult to pose and almost impossible to dress. So what I usually do with these is I will hack these, literally, and what I do is I take it off at the elbow. That way I can put it on a pipe cleaner armature and she can be posed. If you're going to hack it and take it off at the elbow, you do need to make sure there's enough of a hole in the lower arm to put the pipe cleaners in when it's fired, and this one is fine, so I'll put one down there. With this arm, it can be quite difficult because it is so sharply bent. I think the best option is to put a hook in it, and also the one on the other side, a pair, so that they're a pair, and then they can be strung across the body and can be posed. So I'll just put a bit of slip in the top of this arm. I shall insert the hook. Make sure it's sealed in with some more slip. And what must I remember? To put the hole in the arm to let the air out. And the same with the other arm. Just going to bend that over a bit. I could feel that happening. The wire is poked through the back of the arm. And cover that up with a bit of slip. I hope it doesn't show. Perhaps it'll be like a smallpox scar. Vaccination, I mean. There you go. Now, of course, if she's going to have pipe cleaners or hooks put through her arm, she will need to have holes in the shoulders. Push and twist. Push and twist. The last stage of cleaning the greenware is to go over everything with a damp brush to make sure there's no little imperfections left in the face. You can actually be quite... just make sure there's no dust left. Be careful not to make the nose too wet. You could easily wipe it off completely. Just go over everything to make sure it's completely smooth. This is the last stage before firing, so everything has to be just right. Yeah, she's ready for the kiln now. Now today I'm going to show you how to load the shells for the kiln. I would normally, of course, do this inside the kiln, but it's not easy to show you then. So I've taken the shelf out, I've put it inside a tray so I can carry it more easily. I'm going to show you how you put the pieces on the shelf in the kiln for firing. The first thing you need to do is to put a little sprinkle of sand on the shelf. This makes absolutely sure that the porcelain does not stick, because the sand does not melt in the kiln, and it will allow the pieces of porcelain to roll as they shrink. Porcelain shrinks by about 15% in the kiln, so the pieces will come out considerably smaller when you put them in. I'm going to start with some of these pieces here. Make sure they've not collected any dust. Now you lay the pieces round with the heads to the inside rather than the outside. The elements around the outside of the kiln here, and that gets hottest. So you don't want any of the small pieces to get overfired. So you lay the bodies round with their heads into the middle. And you tuck the arms and legs in round about. Make sure the fingers go into the middle rather than on the outside. You can pack them quite close, although they should not be touching, because they shrink in the kiln. It's a bit like sliding block puzzles doing this. Now that's ready to go into the kiln. When you get there, just make sure that nothing's rolled out of position and is now sticking to something else, and we're all set to go.